there, I'm Amy Feller with Roofer Chicks. About 10 years ago, I made a DIY video on how to replace a pipe jack, but some of the methods I used are now a little bit outdated, and so I wanted to reshoot it, and I'm a little more updated. I'll start with PPE, right? Gloves, which I hate, and you want to make sure that you're safe and secure on the roof. And then a pry bar, a hammer. I'm going to use hammer and nails. I don't want to get out an air compressor and a nail gun for a simple repair like this, and I think most homeowners are going to use a hammer and nails anyway. I've got two knives. I've got a straight blade and I've got a hook blade, and I love hook blades, and I'll talk more about it when I start using that. And then nails, and so those are my tools. And then as far as materials, ice and water shield, which I just have a small piece, 18 inches by 18 inches ish. I've got my pipe jack, and I've got a couple different kinds here. This is a 3-in-1. It's a very inexpensive one that a lot of people like to use. It's not what I'm going to use today because I want to match the existing pipes on this roof, and they actually have a lead boot. With the 3-in-1, there's different rings on it. That's why it's called a 3-in-1. It can fit 1.5 inches, a 2-inch, or a 3-inch pipe, which is normally the PVC pipes that come up through your roof for plumbing ventilation. So if you just leave it alone, it's 1.5 inches, which is what this pipe is. If you cut out the first ring, it's a 2-inch, and if you cut out the third ring, it's a 3-inch. You want to be careful when you cut the rings. You should be able to pull them out with your hand, but sometimes a knife helps get them going. But you don't want to cut the actual seal because then it'll leak and it won't work. But I'm going to use a lead. They cost more, maybe $25. They last for forever as long as a squirrel doesn't eat them. Squirrels like to eat them. So if you live in an area with a lot of squirrels, it might not be a good idea. But that's what I'm going to use. And then of course shingles to match. This is actually my roof at my house, and my shingles are what they call disco shingles, which sounds fancy, but it means they've been discontinued. They don't make this color anymore, and so I'm going to use GAF barkwood, which is really similar. Also, you need sealant, roof sealant, and the caulk gun that you put the sealant in, and spray paint, which is not pictured, but it'll arrive. Okay, so we're gonna get to it. You start with a pry bar, and I'm sure she'll end up cutting some of this out. And you want to carefully slide it in between the shingles to break that seal line. With a dimensional shingle like this, the seal line is all the way along the edge. With a 3-tab shingle, it's in the middle. So you just want to find that and gently break it. And then we're going to fast forward because this is not going to happen easily. Hey, there's my ice and water shield. So the reason you want ice and water, and it's kind of a new thing, I say new, in the roofing world, 15 years maybe, is it gives you a second layer of protection. So if the water does get underneath the shingles for whatever reason, then you've got another layer. And anytime you have any type of penetration in a roof, it's a potential leak point, more so than any other area. So chimneys, pipes, all of that, skylights. And so we put ice and water around all of those things. So that's where I want my hole. See, really, that shingle should come off. Oh, and it's loose, so it can. Well, let's just do it. It's not gonna stick because of the rain, because it's wet. So as we're pulling this roof apart, it's not easy. The shingles are super brittle, and they're breaking as we're trying to pull them apart, and that's something you do run into. We're also finding a lot of rusted nails, and so somehow water is getting underneath those shingles. It would be 30 minutes if we weren't having so many problems. All right. So time to put it all back together. It's 67 degrees here today, and so that's part of the reason the shingles are brittle. Probably 80 to 90 degrees is about the best temperature to do a shingle roof repair because the shingles aren't too hot, but they're pliable, because when they're cold, they're not very pliable. So, all right, so when I put it back, of course, I'm gonna have to cut around the pipe. And that is why I like the hook blade, because the hook blade goes through the front of the shingles. And if you don't have a hook blade, the straight blade, you have to go through the back. So it's nice to have both. And with architectural or dimensional shingles, you want to line up the bottom of the shingle with the cut line. And there's a nail line. Most brands, it's pretty obvious where the nail line is. You want 4 to 6 nails per shingle. Manufacturer requires 4. A lot of people do 6. If you do 6, your wind resistance goes up. When you're cutting a shingle, especially with a hook blade, I found you want to get your hand out of the way because it's pretty easy for it to pull out, especially when it's colder like it is today, and slip. And you'll cut your other hand. Slam it down a little bit so that the boot will take the slope of the roof. And you want to set it so that this is the apron of it, and you want it to come over the lower shingle so that when you put your next shingle on the top of it, it'll have the sides there. Didn't used to, but anymore a lot of people are putting sealant, MP1, underneath the boot when they set it. Just another step to make sure that it's secure. A lot of people nail it at this point on the top of it. I don't. When I run my next shingle, if I run a full shingle, it ends up hitting on the pipe, and we don't want that. So I'm going to put in a piece. If I'm close to the edge of the roof, I just toss it right off, and that way it's not my way anymore. And if I stand up, I don't accidentally stand on it and slip. If I'm further up the roof, you can't do that. This one is at the pipe again, and I want to go at least an inch in. I just mark my lines each side big enough so I can see them again when I go to do it. And then how far up, I want to leave a little bit of clearance at the top as well. I don't like it. And I am trying to cut it so that if my knife goes through, I'm not hurting my good shingles that are going to show. All right, so we got all that. Some people, most people put nails in the face of this. I don't a lot with the lead boot. I do with the 3-in-1 boot, but it's heavy enough. And when you do that, you put nails through the face, you can do it. Make sure you put sealant on top of them because the weather will oxidize the nails and they'll rust out. And then you fold your boot down in tight down next to your PVC pipe. If you cut it like that to help you fold it, you want to make sure that you don't cut low enough that water gets, you don't want to make a hole for water to get in. Trying to be gentle so that don't tear it. Lead will tear. Then, as a nice finishing touch, the manufacturers make spray paint that match the shingles, and there you have it. You have a pipe jack replacement.